May 17th, 2012, and this is Day 9 Daily number 464, where we learn to be a better gamer. Is it the 464th? Wow. Numbers keep going up. Ugh. I've been increasingly tempted to break the Day 9 Daily into Season 2, because I guess it just becomes a little bit hard to keep track of things when it's just random numbers all the time, but if I did do a Season 2, I would like to take the title for longest season of anything ever. Good old 500 episode season, time to start a 500 episode Season 2. Ugh. In today's daily, we're going to be examining the fact that zergs now have these range 5 queens, which don't just make the queens themselves better, but once you can make more queens in certain situations to solve certain problems, that allows for other things to be possible, and eventually they just really sort of shift the way that zergs can end up rolling. So we're going to be talking a little bit about that. But of course, just wanted to note the 2 bits of awesomeness that have happened. One, I'm surprised that anyone's watching because Diablo 3 is out right now. And literally, friends I have not spoken to in 10 years are now on Battle.net. I like see their names there. And I'm like, oh yeah, that guy. Is he still alive? Well, he has a level 40 Demon Hunter, so I guess so. That was, of course, a wonderful bit of fun on the first day when we were doing that streaming. There's funny moments where the servers went down, I believe twice for the American folk, which would include me. I was totally lucky and had 2 hours of interview content there, so my streamathon didn't end, but man, I've never seen so many just anger. Just so many angry people, just so much seething, vehement hatred, and it just like showed up in the chat. People were just angry that I wasn't booted from the server and they got booted, and there was so much rage. And I just want to say I don't quite get it. Like, I can understand being like bummed, like, oh no, I was gonna play Diablo 3 today but I can't. But then like the turning to Blizzard being like, you pieces of shit, you would think they know how to test a server. I don't think anyone knows how to prepare for like that many millions and millions and millions of simultaneous connections. You can't like test for that sort of thing. That's almost like if we're a dam and we make electricity and we're happier the more electricity we can generate, right? And the more water that comes in, the more electricity. Great. And then someone says, hey, there's 30 trillion gallons of water that's going to be there in 24 hours. And you're like, blow the dam, right? Who cares? Because the thing is, it's not like, because it sucked for me too. I was in the middle of a streamathon. I didn't have any content for a time. I had to like replay. I mean, I was like sweating. I was like, God, I hope the stream isn't boring. But still, you know, all the people, I hate Blizzard. Hey, what are your top 5 games of all time? Diablo 3, Diablo 2, StarCraft, World of Warcraft, Warcraft 3. It's just like, really? Really? It's just a day. Just a day. And worst case scenario, you hop on StarCraft 2 and cannon rush people, which is what I tried to do, and it turned into an epic carrier game, which has, of course, been uploaded to the daily at www.day9.tv. So that's really cool. The other exciting thing I want to note is, of course, the Red Bull Battleground groups are up. Everything has been publicly announced now, and these are the 16 players that will be in Austin. I would love it if you attended. We have Ganji, Illusion, Stefano, Violet in that first bracket, Sheth, Teja, Puma, Sase in Group 2, Bomber, Ostoji, Huck, MC in Group 3, and Rhett, Last Shadow, Parting, and Puzzle in Group 4. So there's a lot of good players there. There's maximally awesomeness. I would love to hear your predictions, but for now, let's just stick for them in the break. There's actually links on the Twitch TV channel for it, so you should come and hang out and join the extravaganza. Rockin'. Let's talk about this game. I was not going to be doing this game today. I was actually going to be doing a game between Select and Fanatics Alive, and that'll be happening on Sunday. But as I was preparing that material, I of course was watching the Marine King Prime vs. Yu-Gi-Oh! Games from last night, the Gom TV Star League, and the Queens are just making huge changes in the metagame. The Queen now has range 5, which is cool because suddenly Hellions and Marines can't kite us. We can equally deal damage. So if you have 2 to 3 Queens, you can pick off Marines trying to enter bunkers. If there's a bunker down, you can pick off the SCV that's repairing it. If there's just regular Marines pushing at your front, they can't do nearly as much damage. You just have 2 to 3 Queens and they transfuse one another and shove forward. The early game is totally different. And in the late game, if you can get a maxed army of Ultralisk Infestor Queen, you you fungal growth things, then the Ultralisk do damage, and then as the Ultralisk are losing life, you transfuse it 4 times and they don't die. It's kind of amazing how good the Queen is. So in this game, we're actually going to get the chance to examine some of that. And I wanted to bring it up because I feel like it's an historically relevant thing that's going to be happening, where we'll see a lot more Queens pop up in the coming months in the metagame. Likewise, Hashe, the opponent to Spanishiwa in this game, has been experimenting a little bit more with Mech, which is also becoming a little bit more of the strategy du jour for Terrans. So this game is going to be fairly interesting in terms of the... Oh, damn, I had the sound on. Oh, my God, I did it today. Yeah, I got the sound on. The flam. So what we're going to be talking about is not so much why the Queen was necessarily a needed change, or why it was a good or bad change, or why it should have happened at all. It's just going to be the focus on what does this entail now. So I'm going to be bouncing back and forth between these two players who have been working a little bit on this whole Mech Queen thing from both angles. And in this daily, what we're going to focus on a lot is preparing for something, but not committing to it. So, for instance, we're going to get Zergling speed in case we really need those Zerglings out, but we don't build the Zerglings. That's a way to prepare for getting the Lings without having to build a lot of them. And there's going to be a lot of craziness going on in terms of that style. The game's actually going to be quite passive from both ends, but we'll end up talking a lot about how all this passivity still has a lot of preparation work. So in part 1, what I actually want to do is watch the opening from Spanishiwa's point of view and talk about that, and then restart the restart the replay, and then watch it from Hashe's point of view. Or Hash, I call him Hashe because I think that looks cooler. Or Has He, I hope it isn't Has He. If it's Has He, then he's wrong. I'm going to call him Hashe in cast, and there's nothing he can do about it. Both these players, I do believe, are now on Quantic, because Quantic just gobbled that up. Very much so like that evil monster in the old Goosebumps stories that would just gobble children and make them stronger. But in this case, it's sort of a benevolent monster gobbling up a better team to become some sort of super team. So Spanishiwa is going to be throwing down the hatchery on 15 and building 2 more drones. If you are feeling anxious about getting rushed, just don't build these 2 drones. That's a pretty standard thing. I'll also go to the Spanishiwa cam. Also, Overlords are like jet rockets, man. They just speed all over the map. You can easily pop in here, see that he's Terran, and get out without dying to a Marine. It's really, really nice. Marines generally pop out at 305 to 310, that first Marine, so you can spot that, pull on back, and boom. So in other words, this turns this into a 3-player-ish map. So what we're going to see Spanishiwa do is the good old no gas. So let's start considering some possibilities. He has seen no geysers here yet. How the hell did that happen? That actually should not have happened. I'm surprised because this SCV got popped off. But the important thing is that as Spanishiwa, we've seen no gas. So that could mean that there's like a barracks hidden here and it's going to lift and land and we're going to be 2-raxed. But either way, Spanishiwa is not going to overreact. Second Overlord planted to be able to spot some sort of impending 2-racks. I generally prefer to have an Overlord here, a little bit farther back, just so I can float it up to my high ground if it starts taking damage. However, I guess it is important to spot right here because some players will build a bunker here, and if you can't spot it, then that's just danger zone. This is a generally good technique to help you spot if my opponent is rushing me, this Marine will not be here at all. He'll be rushing me. So, for instance, up to... Jeez, was attacking for a long time. Let me back it up. Alright, here. So we have our drone moving up. And here's a question. We've seen no gas. Could be a 2 racks coming. Could be an early expand. But if we do this, and then we see, boom, this Marine is still attacking us, or at least will in a moment, then what that means is we can actually go build extra drones. So, easiest decision ever, building this drone. We can even just queue up another drone. No need at all to worry. This is, I would describe as a trick in this opening. I don't think it is essential to be building all the drones at this point, but in any Zerg build, if you can get away with sneaking in the extra drones, then you're happy. So 2 queens come out, a single set of Zerglings, no spine crawler at all. And of course, just excellent techniqueness from Spanishiwa, who now has no information anymore. Was doing this cancel stuff. The good old Jet Rocket Overlord going to be just positioning itself behind the natural, and the follow-up Overlord just to kind of continue to scoot around and cover interesting positions on the map. So Spanishiwa is going to do the most notable thing to immediately build 2 more queens and is adding 2 more rounds of Creep Tumor. A lot of players would argue that you should immediately add on the larva, but I'm kind of the opinion that this will always be a little bit more comfortable against types of kind of, I guess it is just related to this build, really. A lot of players will say, you know what, you have to inject the larva so that way you can get your drone count up really high, but watch what Spanishiwa does in this game. It's just super slick. He immediately sends a drone out to go take his 3rd base. Here it comes. Come on, come on, come on. Doop. So now this explains money-wise why we went for these Creep Tumors first. I was kind of hesitating because, I mean, let's pretend we weren't going for the 3rd. Should we always do the larva injects first? Should we always add the Creep Tumors on first? I'm slightly torn, just given what I've seen in the last week. I don't actually have the most information on it, but just because the queen range change is a week old. But the queens are becoming so good that you can really shove back Marine and Hellion pushes super aggressively. We're going to see some of the benefits come later on from these early Creep Tumors. So let me step back and reorganize my thoughts on the Creep Tumors because I was kind of going in a lot of directions. One reason why we double Creep Tumor is economy. We don't have the money to spend all the larvae and take this super fast 3rd. The second reason, which would relate to any situation, not just this build, is that our queens are so good that by expanding the creep out, we actually open up new possibilities for the mid game. Ha! There's the way that I want to say that about the Creep Tumors. So this is actually pretty cool, pretty subtle by Spanishiwa. And we have the other queens popping out. And the massive creep spread that continues as these queens just go absolutely nuts, adding on these additional spines. And per usual in Spanishiwa's mixture, he goes for the double evolution chamber, or excuse me, double extractor, or now a 3rd extractor at 40 food. And in this circumstance, a roach warren. No quadruple extractor, just because we're going basic roaches. And a spine. This deals very nicely with a lot of things. Hellions will be coming at us. If he went gas, Hellions will be coming at us a little bit before 6 minutes, and we had all our queens up, and again, they do have that range 5. But we saw that there's no geysers here, so at this point in time, we're only really worried about Hellions leading up to the 7-minute mark, and then Banshees following that at around 8 to 8:30. So this is actually a very timely Roach Warren, very timely composition of queens that deals with a big variety of stuff. So I think this is just a sweet-ass opening. By the way, here's the Banshee getting started. Around 8:30 it'll be popping out. It won't really get to our base until about 9. And of course, adding on the awesome 3rd macro hatch. So, to just recap, we get the double queens with the double creep tumors, expand, on 40, gas, 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 And this Roach Warren is one of these examples of preparing for but not committing to. We get 4 roaches, but we're going to go right back to droning. If for some reason we start to see a lot of aggression and we panic and realize we need roaches, what do? We just build them. Or I should say, we panic and realize that we're under a lot of pressure and we need units, now we just build the roaches. Zerglings are not exactly a good, oh my god, panic, I need to get something out now. They die really, really easily unless you have a billion larvae. In this circumstance, you don't actually need that many larvae for these sorts of emergency backup techniques. And already we have a nice composition. Specifically for this build, well, we got 2 sets of creep tumors early, so if our third was farther away, like on Antigua or something, we could still have the creep get there in time to have our queens be able to defend it. And of course the Roach Warrens kind of clean up everything else, but quite nicely, given the fact that we do have these queens up so early, we can run out and just poke away at these annoying goobers pretty early on. Now, looks like we're getting a little close to the end of part 1, so we're going to stop at 8 minutes for Spanishiwa, and I want to hop over to Hashe's point of view and watch his opening that's going to be mech focused. I might go a little teensy bit longer with Hashe's. Into the game might go up to 10 minutes or so. But just want to give an idea of how this mech style plays out from the Zerg point, or excuse me, from the Terran point of view. And it looks like my mouse got caught on something and is not moving properly. Oh, what a relief! There we go. Now it functions well. So, Hashi's going to open up with the standard, as standard can be, command center. And actually, right now, I want to stop. Yeah, we're going for command center first, right? I want to stop and focus on the meta consideration of why Terrans have suddenly gone mech in the last week. Recently, up until they changed queens, you had to think of how the Zerg player would end up defending himself. You'd see a prevalence of spine crawlers, Roach Warrens just sort of getting thrown up a little bit earlier, Zergs, overly creeping at the front. But now that the queens are so good, a lot of Zergs are just going for 4, 5, 6 queens at the start and saying, ha ha, I'm defending with that. And interestingly, what a lot of Terrans have decided to do is to just mass Blue Flame Hellion. Just go for Reactor Blue Flame, or sorry, Reactor Hellions, and then Factory with Tech Lab and get the Blue Flame, get 12 to 15 Hellions, and then just rush right up, and there's really not much the queens can do. Sure, they can push back small numbers of Hellions, and sure, they can deal directly with small numbers of Hellions, but once you get 15 Hellions in your main base with Blue Flame, if all you have is queens, you die. So there's been a huge surge of players who just open up with gigantic amounts of Blue Flame Hellions. I'm not saying that's the only way to open up, but now all of a sudden, it's become pretty popular. This isn't to say that you need your opponent to go for these queens for the Hellions to be good, just that Terrans are starting to really go for these Hellions a lot because it exploits these Zergs who are going overly queen focused. So, all that said, now Terrans are starting to just go more mech in general, because this will always happen. Aha, I want to beat him because I'm pretty sure he's going queen. Huh, shit, he didn't go queen, he went roaches. Well, I have 2 factories, what do I do now? We're seeing players experiment around with that a lot. It's really, really cool.
Complete.
So this is a way to go mech. And so I will focus on this as a typical opening build order. This just really sucks for mech that this is blocked. We'd really like to be able to build our second refinery. But alas, we cannot. So we're just going to be going bunker and all this good jazz. There's finally our second factory, our second refinery. I would not panic with most mech builds. Sure, you want to be getting things fast, but I mean, you don't have to be, oh, GG, and just leave the game, which a lot of people do, especially on the Korean server. If they're used to double gassing and they're about to take their refinery and you take it, they just leave. They're just like, screw this, man. I'm not playing in this game. Placement of this first bunker, I think, is probably the most important thing. For any mech play. On a map like Ohana, leaving it back by the command center is fine. This is a pretty clever positioning because we are always going to leave these supply depots up as much as possible. We are going to be leaving these up. So we want to try to create a nice constricted little pathway. But quite simply, for whenever you get your geysers, a very standard build is to go for this factory and then reactor, and then you build the second factory with a tech lab as quickly as possible. Hashe doesn't end up doing that. He does the other, slightly more common variant of this, which is just to go for as fast a starport tech lab as possible. And this is the general reasoning behind this, as we're getting this early tech lab for Banshees. Zerg don't have good anti-air, especially not good offensive anti-air. I mean, mutas are basically it. Corruptors, Hydras. I mean, those are really the big three for the layer tech. A hatch tech? I mean, we have Queens and Spores, but it's never like, oh, is he going Banshee? Well, let me just run my Queens to his base and attack. If you get early Banshees, you're essentially safe against everything except Zerglings, because Banshees just don't kill them off quickly enough. So that's what the Hellions are there for. So essentially going Banshee Hellion buys you tons of time. Also, Mech tends to be slow and sluggish, so we may as well begin our preparations fairly early on.
Add-on.
We'll speed it up a little bit because there's not that much crazy that goes on. Spanishiwa's opening was a little bit cuter and off the cuff, but I mean, this is essentially expand, get Reactor Hellions as fast as possible, get Banshees with Cloak as fast as possible thereafter. So we get a teensy bit of map control, and this is kind of an interesting play from Hashe to get the extra command center up. I think this is kind of situational based on the map. If we have an easier third, I'd go ahead and do this, but on other maps I see nothing wrong with just adding the second factory on here in a little bit. We're basically controlling space as much as possible, getting refineries up as much as possible. We will go ahead and head just a slight little teensy bit more ahead. But for a brief period of time, you don't really do much except build Hellions and Banshees, just because it's so ridiculously expensive. With almost any mech build, I love this. This is very, very, very clever. I will say that for any mech build, I would describe the fundamental components as 2 factories, one with Tech Lab, one with Reactor, and 3 command centers and 2 armories. I would say that that is like your core set of buildings before you start to do anything else. No matter what meat you layer on the bones, I want you to know that the bones are 3 command centers, 2 armories, and then 2 factories. One with Reactor, one with Tech Lab. Interestingly enough, when you're going mech, you'd think that the big problem is Mutalisks, because what do I have to shoot up? Well, not Marines anymore. Shit, they really take care of a lot of problems, don't they? How do I fix this? I better get a lot of Thors. This is the big mistake that most players make, is they get 2 factories with tech labs and make too many Thors. The real answer to Mutalisks is lots and lots of Hellions. Tons of Hellions. Watch OGS4GG's stream, watch Marine King Prime stream. They're going mass expand, mass Hellion. Maybe a little Thor, some shit, maybe a little bit. But the counterattack and the threat of counterattack is always tremendous with those Hellions. So we're going to go ahead and hop on into part number 2 and talk more about this big influence that both these build orders are going to have in the mid-game. Pow!